as a business owner, you will continue to struggle with building and growing until you get clear on exactly what your vision is. In this episode, we're actually going to go over what we taught during our 5-year workshop. So crazy, like literally we have had the craziest results. This thing happened 2 days ago. A guy actually reached out to me today to let me know that he has actually doubled his profit margin on his offer. This guy goes and he sells roofing. He increased his price by 20% and he has doubled his profits. In fact, just wanted to read you a message that he shared in a group, which is just absolutely crazy. So this was online that he shared this. He said, I was in a workshop on Tuesday and it was great. There was some discussion about charging more. I am one of the most expensive roofers in my area already, but based on discussions, it seemed like I should be charging even more. On my flight home, I put together a proposal that included a 20% bump in my usual price. They just signed. They are buying the experience I provide. Who wouldn't rather work with people who value them and what they're truly providing? Charge more. And this is just one of the many things that we are going to be talking about today, myself and Daryl, about the 5-year growth strategy and workshop that we covered. So excited to jump in with you guys.
Cool. So to get started, when we looked at how we wanted to start this off, we really wanted to make sure that everyone understands the why of why they're in business. That's more than just making money in your business. It's more than just being a successful business owner, but it really comes down to who you are as a person, what that means to you, and defining that. What's interesting is most people don't really define who they are, who they want to be, and how to get there. And so that's where we started.
And so for those that are visually watching this, either on YouTube or Spotify, you're going to see we have this workbook that we put together for our group. It was really awesome. I spent a lot of personal time. I went up to my lake house and spent about 22 hours in putting together a lot of this content based on the framework that me and Daryl had put together. And so what we did is like literally, if you can see this on here, we got a bunch of different blanks and whatnot. But yeah, as Daryl was talking about, like one of the most important things when you decide that you want to grow is understanding why. Like why do I want to grow? Do I want to grow? Like some people think that they should just grow for growth's sakes, and other people think they want more money, they want more things, and there was a lot of discussion about that.
What was fascinating is when we were talking about like, what do you really want, right? There was even the idea of I want a jet. And then it was like, I actually want more time with my family. And then it was like, well, if I get a bunch of more new things, does that take away from the time I want with my family? So prioritizing exactly what it is you want. So it was interesting because there was a lot of people that, you say certain things, but when you really think deeper into why do you want those things, sometimes it really doesn't even align with your core, your main priorities.
The thing that always surprises me is whenever you get in front of a group of people, whether it's new sales reps or business owners or whatnot, I always love to ask them the question, okay, what's your dollar amount goal, right? Whether it's per year or to take off the table. And without fail, it's always a round number, right? It's always like, I want 15 million, or I want $100,000 a year, or I want $1 million in my bank account. And every single time someone says that to me, I look them square in the eyes. I'm like, that's not your goal. Like that is not your goal, because if the number is round, society gave that to you. You think you want that. You think you want 100 grand a year. You think you want $1 million a year. You think you want 15 million off the table, whatever. But it's like, what are you going to do with that? Like, if a goal really was yours, you have backed into it. You've said, I need $362,000 a year, because $362,000 pre-tax is going to be $282,000 post-tax. And with that, I'm going to spend $50,000 on real estate. I'm going to pay my mortgage for $63,000. I'm going to do this, that, and the other, right? Like that's when you really begin to get granular with your goals and really understand why. And one of the reasons why it's so important to get clear, and why I started this episode with like, you've got to get clear, is like, if you don't know where you're going, if there's not a clear vision, a light at the end of the tunnel or whatnot, you're not going to be motivated to take a step forward. If you're just sitting in the dark, doing the same thing over and over again, like, you're going to be fine with that because there's no clear path forward. And so, like, that's the reason why we went through this, like, the why exercise is, like, get people really clear on what their motivating factors are behind everything, whether it's the jet or, and the thing I love about this exercise is we talk about all the things, right? Like, we're not just motivated by money. We're talking about, like, how do I feel better physically? How do I address my economic situation, my relationships, my spirituality? Daryl, what was like that section we went through probably for like 3 hours?
Yeah.
What do you think what were the biggest highlights for you during that section?
What was really interesting is kind of questioning the people, right? Everyone has this like gut reaction. Oh, I want this and I want that. And then asking, well, why do you want that? What's the purpose behind it? And is that really what you want? And I think what was really cool is watching people shift and change and really get clear, because our initial gut reaction to the things we want and why, especially if we're in a crowd, because you kind of want to impress people. You want to sound like, I have big ambitions and this is what I want. But it comes down to the core. Like, people want to be healthy. People want to have control of their time. People don't want to be controlled by money. And people want to have like phenomenal relationships and really like enjoy life with others.
What I actually liked about that section, I don't think people are controlled by money. I think people are controlled by things that money buys. And you actually shared an experience of like how like certain things have actually cost you more time and energy that you didn't necessarily account for beforehand. And so, I think it's fantastic to go and be aggressive and like go after the big money. But like, when you get down to your why, it's like, okay, I can spend money on things that aren't going to cost me more time and energy. I can contribute towards charities. I can do things that are going to better society and whatnot. And those things give you more energy,
Correct.
Give you more like, so I actually loved the kind of the story of reality that you shared. Like, can you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, if I look at my lifestyle today, like, I feel like I have as like a 14-year-old kid, like, I am living my dream. Like, what you thought was your dream. No, it was my dream when I was 14.
Right. I'm saying at 14, you thought 14, this is what I want to do.
This is all the stuff I want. Right. And what's interesting is like some of those things are great. I love riding dirt bikes. I love going on vacation. I love doing certain things with my family. I've got an awesome family, but then like I've got a big property and I didn't realize how much work a big property requires of you. So it's like, I started realizing like, man, I got a lot of things. Do I want all these things? Do I want to put my time and energy into these things? Or do I want to put my time and energy into something else? And that was kind of a wake-up call for me of like getting really clear, because it's really easy to, kind of cloud your vision or your life with things that don't really serve you or aren't your highest good. And I think that's a process. That's not because the reality, and we got to this full circle. It's like in a business, growing a big business, one of the coolest things is the bigger you get, the more people you get to serve. And, we've always talked about like serving our employees as our first customer and then our customers as our next customer. You take care of your employees. If they're your number one customer, then they'll take phenomenal care of your second customer, the person buying your product or service. And so it's like, it was kind of full circle of like, why do I want to go big? Do I want to go big for all the things, or do I want to go big for the impact? And really, I think that's what it came down to is like, where do you want your impact felt? And that's where everyone started to like find strong meaning.
Yeah, it's so cool. I actually received a text message from another guy regarding that exact word. And he said, impact, period. You got that word burned into my mind. Thank you. And so like impact is so, so important, right? Like not balance of time, energy, whatnot. It's like, how do I impact? Like, and to your point, like, a lot of people don't realize that growing a business, like the most rewarding thing is just that, right? Like the influence that you have on these people, being able to provide for 1,100 different families or help provide for 1,100 different families.
Yeah.
and influence them physically, economically, with their associations, the way that they give back. Like, that's the stuff that the Founder Project and Next Level Home Pros is all about.
Right. We've had a lot of examples of really cool experiences from our employees, from buying their first house to getting married, all these cool events happening in their lives. My mother-in-law recently, she said to me, she shared with me someone that she ran into that used to work for us. And he said, you know what? He's like, I'm glad I worked for him because it allowed me to see how good a workplace can be. And he was just grateful to like experience it and know like, culture can really drive a business in a really positive way.
Dude, I every time I'm just like at a loss for words when I think about, different experiences. One of our former employees, she's posting right now how she started investing, and she's like done all these things. She recently bought some land. It's been really cool to see. We had people, multiple occasions that have texted me and be like, dude, I'm down over 100 pounds. Right? Like that is cool. That is like the fact that, we're not a gym and people are getting gym results, because of the influence and the impact of the culture that we provided. But, this is, and this is one of the, like I said, we spent 3 hours during the workshop talking about this type of stuff because that is what life is all about. It's the reason we build a business. It's the reason that we want to get money. It's the reason we want to do all these things. And too often we don't spend the time enough to think about that. Like, exactly what do I want? And that's one thing I want to ask you on the other end, whether you're listening to this or watching this, like, what do I really want physically? How do I want to look? How do I want to feel? What are some experiences I want to go through at the end of, 20 years from now, 5 years from now, whatever it may be? Like, is golfing 5 times a week important? Is hiking Mount Kilimanjaro from a physical standpoint? Economically, like, what is enough for me, and what else can I use to go and impact society from an economic standpoint? Associations, like, am I a football coach? Am I a singer, an influencer? Am I like, how much time do I spend with my family, my kids? All right. And like everything, which is one of the big things that we talked about at the workshop, you pay for everything with time, energy, or money.
Yeah.
Right. And so with those things that you want, are you going to create it by making more money? Are you going to create it by making more time or freeing up more time? Or are you going to make it by freeing up the things that suck your energy and allow you to dedicate your energy to the things that you love?
So I just had this thought. I'm just thinking of like some people who might be watching this. I had lunch with a guy yesterday, asked me this question. He said, how do you change or shift when you feel like you're in a place that you don't want to be? I'm just curious, what advice would you give to people that feel like they're just battling and they don't feel like they're able to move in that direction? They're not able to like give themselves the things that they want.
So step number 1, you need to change your environment. Environment is the number one impact to the way that we live. I love the study from Atomic Habits where he talks about the military people that were over in Vietnam. It was something like 90% were using what was that drug?
Opioids or
no, not opioids.
Cocaine.
No,
I don't know drugs.
I don't know drugs. Anyways, it was a stimulant, and the crazy thing is like the relapse.
Meth?
It was meth, yeah. So like 90% of people over there, or it was a large percentage, had used it. And the relapse of meth is like 95%, right? Like if you've had it and you quit, you're going to have it again. The crazy thing was, of those people where it's normally 95%, like the relapse rate was only like 5%. Why? Because they completely changed their environment. When they went back home, they were no longer in Vietnam or around the same people or whatnot. And so traditionally, the drug that it dragged many people down and ruined many people's life did not, because they changed their environment. And so I would say the number one way to change anything is like you control your environment, right? Like you do not have to live where you live, do what you do, be who you are. You can make change. We live in the United States of America, or wherever you live in the world, there is a way to change and control your outcome. So one, change the environment, who you're hanging around, what you're doing on a daily basis, maybe even where you're living. And it usually doesn't cost a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, so I actually heard something like that. Someone taught me a long time ago, if you're wanting to change your thoughts, move. If you're laying on your bed and you have a negative thought, just roll to the other side.
Right.
And it works.
Which is literally an environment change.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it ties into that. And so it's like if you're sitting at your desk and you're like, man, like, I hate my job, go move. Go do something. Change your body, move your body.
Yeah, so it's like two of my favorite things, environment and physically moving, right? Like you want to get and just start with doing one thing, right? Like you don't got to go and do 100 push-ups, do one push-up, right? You don't have to go make $1 million, make $1, right? Like you don't have to read 100 pages, read one page, right? Like just do one thing, start creating a good habit, change the environment. Like for me, that's how I'd answer the question.
No, I like it. I love it.
So, after we got really clear about like what our why was, we dug into so many different things. Like if you guys are watching this, like, dude, this workbook is so freaking big. Like, one of the things we covered was like, what's today's reality? We went over people's like net profits, gross margin, cost of goods sold. And we really dove in and taught people how to strategically use those things to their advantage for growth.
So what's interesting though is, and kind of, it wasn't surprising, but it surprised some people, is that people think they know their numbers until you really dive in and figure out how they're getting their numbers. Right. There were people who were showing us their gross margin, their net profits. And then as we dug into the numbers, we realized, okay, they're not accounting this and they're not accounting that.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that's a super important thing to realize, is like, how are you defining your numbers and how are you driving them? Because it's not the same.
And I think the psychology of today's reality, most people lie to themselves about anything, right? We lie to ourselves about like, we don't want to look at our bank account. We don't want to look at our credit card statement. We don't want to understand our numbers. We don't want to weigh ourselves. We don't want to count the calories of our food. We don't want to like real hard inventory on our relationship with our spouse. Like we just avoid that stuff, right? And so psychologically, I think it's so imperative as a business owner, as anybody that wants to improve, like, yes, decide what you want, right? What drives me? That's why we started with why. But then like, okay, what's today's reality so that you can really identify the gap, right? Of what is today? What do I want? And then you can start to construct the bridge to overcome the gap.
The reality of it though is like, once you can understand the numbers or the structure, it really is not that hard to change things in the right direction.
Oh.
And I think a lot of times, like you said, you just have to put the work in to really know what's going on. And then once you know what's going on, it's easy to change things. It's easy to have the hard conversation. It's easy to like make small adjustments that start to like compound and impact everything else you're trying to do.
A prime example is Nick that we shared earlier as far as like increasing his profit margin. Like increasing his profit margin, like the actual act of doing it was not difficult. It was literally changing numbers on a spreadsheet, literally changing numbers on his computer. The hard part is mentally making the decision to do so, right? Yeah. And so I think that's where most people struggle, is like they know what they should do, but like just overcoming the thoughts that are going on in their mind, like, I'm already too expensive, or I don't deserve this, or whatever it is that's the thoughts that are going on inside. And in the workshop, we did a lot of that, like just helping people overcome their current reality, and that they do have control over the future.
Yeah. So yeah, something I was thinking about too is when you said that, it's interesting how people feel like they need to deserve things. It's something that I've realized a few years ago. And this is my take or my belief, is that we don't earn or deserve anything. We create and design it. And I think that's very powerful. And that's why this is so powerful, is because we're not trying to justify why we deserve success. We're not trying to justify why we should, how to earn it. We're trying to design it, and we're trying to, what did I say? Design
and create.
Design and create. So I think that's really the strong power of doing all this.
Well, it's funny because I think a lot of times I feel like my job is just giving people permission.
Yeah.
Right? Like because they don't think they deserve it, and I just give them permission to deserve it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so funny. Like if we could just overcome that aspect of like asking for permission, like you don't need permission. Go and take it. Go and do it. It's amazing.
I think that ties into lying to yourself.
Right.
Yep. The whole voice in your head that's telling you can't do it yet, or you shouldn't, you should wait, or you don't deserve it, or do you work hard enough for this? That's the crazy thing.
It's awesome. And so, one thing you'll see on here is, what is your 5-year vision? We went in deep of like, okay, what does this thing look like? And we helped people like design out what their perfect customer experience for their product or service was. And we had everybody, like these aren't just home service companies. We had a food guy that like does ready-made meals. We had chiropractors. We had roofing companies, chimney companies. We had a little bit of everything. We had a taco truck guy. We have a guy that does like coaching and consulting, literally just so many different things. And so like getting clear and helping these guys build out what their 5-year vision is, starting with the customer experience, because the experience is what ultimately dictates the staffing and the automation and the organization that you have to build, right? Because if I want to just go and deliver a very cheap, non-quality product, I don't need a bunch of support staff to do that. But if I want to be like picking people up in a limo and putting them on a rocket with Elon Musk to take them to Mars, I'm going to need some really good R&D. I'm going to need, some really good customer service specialists. I need some good technicians in building up that rocket ship, right? And so just understanding, that's like one of the reasons why we started like with, why do I want to work? What does it look like? All right. So if I need this much, need this much money to fund my ideal lifestyle, what am I going to do in the future? And then backfilling that in. And so in this workshop, we basically would break down like a sales organization. So we first of all started with the customer experience. Then we would break down like the sales organization of like, okay, what does the average sales rep do in your industry? Oh, they do about $1 million a year. And you want to do 50 million a year? That means you need 50 sales reps. And if you need 50 sales reps, the law of management says that a manager can only manage anyone with a range of 3 to 8 people. So at minimum, you're going to need 7 managers. And of those 7 managers, you're going to need 2 to 3 regionals, and 2 to 3 regionals, a divisional, or so on and so forth. And we help build these org charts all the way back up. And it was just really fun. Like we had blank pages with triggers that go through and get them thinking through the whole process. We did it for sales. We did it for ops. We talked about, do you need an internal tech program? Do you need all these different things? And then we did something that like business owners really need and suck at.
So one of the things that's really interesting is you find people who find it extremely hard to scale their business.
Yeah.
And a lot of times because they're trying to scale it with the one step in front of themselves. They're not seeing the end of the road and then thinking about, how do I have to get there? And, we have heard from different people who are like, hey, I've grown my business. It's 4 times the size it was 2 years ago, but I don't make any money. I used to make a ton of money when I was small, and now I make no money as, at this size, 4 times the size I used to be. And that's just when you lack structure and organization to grow, your growth is going to take a hit on your business.
It's really the concept of beginning with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
Like if I know that I want to make so much money and it's going to require that 5 years from now, I can back into it with pay structure, locations, scalability, all the different things versus, like you said, just kind of just growing for growth's sake. Because what happens, I'll give you a perfect example. You'll design your business with one location and one sales team. So you're like, oh, I can afford to pay all these sales rep X, but you're not thinking 5 years from down the road when you need that team lead, that divisional manager, the director, the VP, and everything else. And so what happens is as the business grows, you continue to pay these people the same amount of money, and then you add more money and add more money and add more money from a percentage standpoint, which all of this more money you added from a percentage standpoint takes away from the percentage of net profit. And so, which goes to Daryl's example of having 4 locations and making no money. It's because they didn't start with, this is how I have to back into it.
Yeah.
And so that was like the beauty of everything that we went through in this whole thing. And then like defining out roles, goals, and responsibilities. Like it was funny. We were asked the question during the workshop of like, well, what if I just want to be like Elon Musk, where nobody has a role and nobody has like anyone that they're accountable to? And I'm just like, bro, like that works for like very few people and usually just tech companies. Like everybody else, we got to have this. We got to have that definition of like what your title is, what do you do? What are your goals or your KPIs, like the key performance indicators? Like, how am I going to know if Daryl is winning at his job, right? And how is Chris going to know if I'm winning at my job?
And this was something, I mean, we fell victim to this, right?
Yeah.
When we were growing really fast, we're like, we need more people because we have more problems to solve. And we'd hire someone and then like, all right, fix the problem. And then they're like, okay, fix the problem.
And they're like, wait, what's my responsibility though?
Yeah.
Like, you want me to fix a problem, but like, what am I going to do ongoing?
And then they start working on that problem and they start working on other stuff. And then you walk in to see how things are going. You're like, what are you doing? They're like, I'm doing this, this, and this. And they're lost. They don't know what they're supposed to be doing. The business isn't benefiting from them because they're doing things that aren't that important. And like, it's just confusing for everybody. And so once we started to implement these things, like it really gave people a clear way to win. It gave the business a clear way to grow. And we were able to like measure performance, find the people that actually were hurting our business, get them out of the business, and then promote the people that were actually excelling.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, that's like one of the key things that we did with this group is like, we gave them the structure. All right, this is how you define out the role. This is how you do the KPIs. This is how you build out your responsibilities. And then with every responsibility, we did the one thing that most business owners hate to do: build standard operating procedures, SOPs, right? And so we created this really cool way to be able to do that. People loved it. But probably one of the biggest things that most business owners struggle with, which I briefly touched on, is the pay structure.
Yeah.
Like that was, what did you think about like the discussion there?
I mean, there's so many questions, right? People are really trying to wrap their heads around it because everyone wants to pay well, but also people want to be profitable, but people also want to deliver a good product. People want to create motivation. People want to like, there's so many things we're trying to accomplish with pay structure, which makes it so hard to get it right. And, we've had over 1,000 employees and several different pay structures. We've had so many different sales commission structures to motivate and incentivize guys. And so we've had to learn making a lot of mistakes there.
Yeah, I really think one of our biggest secrets, so like all the things that we've talked about are definitely some of the secrets in which we were able to grow from 0 to 233 million a year in 5 years. But I really think like pay and partnership agreements were one of our biggest underlying like just secret sauces. Yeah. Because we structured it right to be able to scale from a pay standpoint. And then the partnership side, we incentivized our people with long-term incentive plans and high-level executives that were able to come in, not get paid a lot of money, but then help us go and grow because they saw the end of the road. And we're sitting there and we got the 5-year roadmap of this is what our organization is going to look like 5 years from now, and this is the pay structure and compensation plan we're going to put together. Now let's go build it. It becomes like way more clear. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning of this podcast, this episode, is like you have to be so clear about these things and so that you can attract in this kind of talent, the top level talent, which ultimately is what builds your vision and allows you to sit down and have just incredible recruiting conversations of why my industry, why my company, and why this opportunity within the company.
So you're trying to tell me that you've had all good experiences with partners?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think what we have taught about partners is the best because we've seen all sides.
Yeah, we had partners at the very beginning that quickly went away. We had it structured in a way where that could happen and it didn't hurt the business.
I had a partner from a previous business that ended up going to prison for bad practices. Yeah, like dude, we've experienced the whole gamut of partnerships.
Yeah, and I think too, it's going back to having a clear vision. You'll start to see the people that are like on the same boat as you, and the other people that are just getting farther and farther and farther away.
Yeah, Daryl, there was like so much from this workshop that I'd love to share with people. Now, we gave you a really good recap. There's going to be an opportunity down below. If you guys want to just buy the recording, I'd highly recommend it. Like everyone walked away from this thing with like, holy crap, what did I just experience? I mean, literally we had testimonials of guys like afterwards is like, dude, they were going to stop at like 5, but they keep going. We worked right through lunch. Like I've never thought spending money on developing myself as a business owner would be worth it. And that was like crazy. Like regardless of whether or not you buy a recording of our workshop, you watch the free podcast or whatever, the goal that we have for everyone watching this is go invest in yourself. Go spend money on a coach, on a program, on something that's going to help you create clarity to be able to go and scale your business. Because ultimately, if we can impact business owners for the better, like that's our impact that we're going to leave on society.
So do you think you had enough time to cover everything you wanted to?
Man, I wish it did. Literally at the end, we were just like flipping through pages like, hey, you're going to have to work on this on your own and so on and so forth. By the way, if you do buy the recording, like I said, there's a link down below. You can buy the recording. You will get this actual workbook, which is pretty awesome. And one of the things that you'll have the opportunity to add in, which is 13 different ways to incentivize your people long term, whether it's phantom equity or restricted stock units or whether it's bonuses or whatnot. We put together like this 51-page compilation that's freaking awesome. Once again, you don't need to buy it. Please keep watching the podcast. We have awesome free content. But if you are looking to level up your game, that'll be available down there. But dude, what was your biggest takeaway before we wrap this up from the 5-year workshop?
I think we got a bunch of reviews in, right? People saying, hey, thanks. And we got a few videos, and just seeing people's reaction makes me realize just how many lessons we've had to learn. We've learned from our mistakes. We've learned from our successes, but business is very predictable, and business is something that like, if you do it the right way, like you can get good results. And a lot of people are struggling to just do some of the small things correctly. And it's like small tweaks can really change your outlook quickly.
Absolutely. So guys, go get clear. Hopefully you gain some value from this episode. We appreciate you watching. Until next time.